Welcome everybody to our second session of the day. It's our May 2025 Town Hall, and we're showing off the alpha release of a new studio, which we talked about in the last Town Hall, which was back in March. Got really good feedback to that, so we've been working away to try and get it out to you guys, put it in your hands so that you can play around with it. Got quite a lot of extra features since then, and a really easy way to work with it. So I'll jump into it. Share my screen. So I'll explain how to install it and how to get started with it shortly, but effectively just while it's an alpha, we're on a new domain. So studio-alpha.siteglide.support, it's not .com. That's just to keep it all separate. And if you log into there and you have the module installed or use the site template that I'm going to show you, under CMS, you would see Studio. So if you don't see that, just reach out and let us know, but I'll explain how to set it all up shortly. So yeah, you go to the new Studio tab, and effectively we've got everything all in one place now, which brings everything together. Everything was quite disjointed beforehand, having to jump around from Pages to maybe Site Builder to various other places. And what I also want to show is that the new version doesn't really mind what code base you want to use or what framework you want to use. So we've got both Flowbyte, which is Tailwind, and SoftUI, Bootstrap 5 frameworks and templates, design systems running. So we'll have a quick look. Let's go into the Bootstrap 5 design first. So this is just a few sections from that Bootstrap 5 SoftUI design system. All of this is available in Site Builder. So if you're familiar with any of our Site Builder templates, this site is actually a copy of one of those, and we're just bringing that across for testing purposes into Studio, so you can have a play around with the differences. So you'll see here that you can see the site on the left, but then you've got sections on the right. And if you've not watched the previous town hall, then the whole idea here is we're trying to take the concept of web apps and separating content from code and making it available as part of pages and unstructured content as well. So you'll see that on the right hand side, you can just edit your content, and that would update there. So clients cannot break the code because all they're working with is the area that you allow, and I'll show you the layout for that in a second. And then obviously you can put all kinds of different things in there. So as an example, you can put in imagery. Let's put that image in. It really doesn't matter which image you use, and it all hooks up to the file manager. You've got things like components, so that would allow you to manage buttons and links, and you can add more components. And then let's just have a look at some other sections quickly. So the team one, you'll see, is not clickable because that is it's not being set up to work with a studio, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about how layouts and sections work in that sense. And I've got a video shortly to show you how we quickly got AI to do the setup work for you for the FAQ section, which I'll show shortly as well. And then in the earlier session, we actually set up the stats layout as well. So I'll just jump across to the Flowbyte template just to show you the kind of differences and a few extra things in there. In here, again, we've got kind of a hero one, which has some fields and components for buttons, but it also has something called lists. So in here, the list is actually just a loop of putting in logo items if you had some logos, company logos that you wanted to show, and it's removed one. And you can obviously then use File Manager again to control the logos. A better example of lists quickly is probably this section here. So if we go to team, you can then, this is set up to manage static content. So these are just some static fields where you might manage team members, and you can add another one and again update the imagery there. So I think it's that one. So they'll just drop another version of that image in. But what's really nice, if you didn't see it before, is the ability to use dynamic content. So now we can say, right, let's pull in some blog posts as an example. All I then need to do is map the fields. So I'm just going to pick a list image and slug as the URL. and it's automatically pulled that data in based on the field mapping. So that's a much, much faster way of quickly getting dynamic content out into a layout and make it easier for people to manage. You can then also still actually do settings on the layout. So you can then still switch the layout left and right. Obviously we're in alpha, so we'll have a look at that one. But those two should swap sides a bit like it would up here quickly if I just switch that. So there we go. The text has gone onto the left and the image onto the right. Couple more sections to look at quickly, and then it'll be great to jump into any questions and run through it a little bit more. But this blog section, so that is, you'll see it's not editable here. What we're doing there is we're just pulling in an existing Siteglide include from Site Builder actually, but it could be from anywhere, where effectively you're just bringing in a module include with the ID of the module and then a layout, which again I went and got this from Site Builder. So that's just a great way for now that you can use existing content that existing functionality from Siteglide that we haven't yet built into Studio as like a native feature. Obviously, at some point very soon, we want to have it that you can click add section, and then under blog, you would actually have like a proper blog set up so that you can filter, you can control exactly how it all works. But for now, you can just literally pull in a module include. Exactly the same with e-commerce, so just another example of being able to pull in extra content and functionality. Jumping through a bit quickly, there's a little bit to cover. So this one is a pricing section. This is another great example of using lists. So here we've got a list that loops through and shows you all the different plans. So you've just got your content per list there. And then finally, we've got forms. So again, we haven't integrated forms fully yet. So that's something we want to spend some time and get right and leverage the site builder dynamic form layouts. But what we've done, again, is simply just created a layout where we've done an include form, and we've done something a little dynamic. So we've created a field called form ID and given it an ID of ID and a default value of 1. And we put that where you would normally have the form ID value. So in the field, you type 1, and therefore it's going to output a form with ID 1. All very basic at the moment, but it's just an example of what you can choose to do. You might just decide to put 1 in the layout and not let people change the form here. Totally up to you. So that kind of covers pages. There's some other sort of standard page detail stuff that you can do like you would normally do in the other pages area. So enabled title, meta description, SEO, that kind of stuff. That's all available here. We'll keep adding to that. There's a few things that somebody asked earlier that are missing. So like add to search engines, that kind of stuff. We've got the
Or
enable.
schema. I think
Yeah.
somebody was asking about schema.
Yes, I can't remember what we've got already, but yeah, exactly. We'll just keep adding here, and we'll probably add a new tab pretty soon for secure zones so that you could lock a page down like you can currently. Just all of that kind of Siteglide functionality, we want to bring it into this one place and make it really easy to manage without having to learn where to go and all of that kind of stuff. A few extra tools that might be useful, being able to view responsively as you go, backwards and forwards buttons, a view to view the front end of this page. It does exist, it's not just the UI. You can see this. So you'll see we only have one item, the 2 items there, because we're working live. If we now click publish, that would then update. So you can work in preview mode before you click publish, which is a feature we don't really have in the old version of Studio. You kind of do, but this is a lot. This is an accurate representation of the page, and obviously we're not showing liquid tags anymore, which the old version did. This is a much more user-friendly way of working, I think. So I'll go to questions because we did earlier, and there was a pretty good next question. And anything immediately you wanted to mention or ask about the actual pages side of things?
Yeah, I'm curious, Luke, the lists that you show, they're sort of on-page web apps. Am I right? As opposed to, there's not going to be any equivalent of the information that you're creating in a list on on the admin. So it's different than like putting a web app onto the page where you're actually referencing things you've built in a web app.
So it's exactly the same in terms of what you can do. So let me just add another section. I haven't even shown this yet. So if we add um, the team section again, and I'll show you how that's built in a second, and we come down here and we open up that team section and go to a list, you can pick a different data source, which would be a web app. So I will open it up in a separate um, tab. So let me just show this quickly. So if these are the fields available in the actual web app itself. I'll just put these in and then we'll go off and have a look at the web app itself. So those 6 items that are showing there are being dynamically pulled through from this web app gallery, which I'll open a new tab as well. So it is a web app list view. It's just you haven't had to create a specific layout, list view layout for that web app. If we now go into an item and we update that picture to be this one and click save. So now we're in the web app item and come back to, we just save this page quickly and then we view the front end. You'll see that that image has been updated. Does that answer your question? I wasn't quite sure.
Yes. So lists are really like list views.
Yeah, exactly. Just normally you would have to go and build that list view yourself manually in code. Then you would have to go and insert it into a page and set it all up. Whereas with this, we're using like this mapping feature that we actually have similarly in Site Builder to let you do it all in one place.
Which is great. And you can still go find the list view and make the adjustments in code on the back end to adjust this.
Yes, so that was the bit I was expecting there to be a question on, and I was going to go
Okay.
into it next. So all we've been looking at so far is pages. Obviously, we need to work out how these pages are put together code-wise, and essentially everything is done by sections. So each of these has some code behind it, and this little pencil here on any of them will take you to the layout, the code behind the scenes that runs it. So so this is the team layout. It's actually being used for 2 sections in this page, so you'd have to be a bit careful if you're going to reuse a section and edit it. It's going to update both. But in this case, we've got some fields and we've got a list. So this area here is defining the fields, and then when we were bringing a data source in, we were mapping web app fields to these list fields, if that makes sense. And you've got total control of your code here. It can be Bootstrap, it can be you can have animations, you can do whatever you want code wise, as long as you set this up with a format that will properly document and help you with, then that functionality will just work seamlessly.
It's very convenient.
Yeah, it's probably it so I was going to say it at the end, but a big shout out to Josh, who's built a lot of this, and he's done a fantastic job piecing it all together. But this was one of his features that just sort of wowed me really, because I realized how powerful it can be in terms of simplifying the process of bringing out dynamic content, but also um, just the use cases for it. You can now literally use web apps and modules and anything dynamic anywhere really easily.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. We're really hoping this is going to be essentially a revolutionary way of using Siteglide. It's a new experience, and once you actually start to use it, you start to figure out the real capabilities of it, and how useful it can be.
So that pencil icon that that's only for people who have access to edit stuff, right? The client wouldn't be able to get to this point. Is that correct?
At the
Or
moment, we have
whoever, like through permissions, you would
exactly.
give people access to this or cut that access off, right?
At the moment, in this new studio, we haven't done the user roles or permissions, but I think we will follow and hopefully use the same permissions that Siteglide has. It would just make so much sense to make granular permissions that maybe client restricted by default would only allow editing of fields. The pencil would disappear, maybe even the delete button would disappear, and the data source. So yeah, we can work on user roles with your feedback and I think a really important point with this is we've tried to think about the different types of people involved in the process of building and maintaining a website. So you've got the design process, which might be going and grabbing a site from ThemeForest and hooking it up. More on that in a minute to make that easier for you. You might be designing from scratch and then building it, but you've got the person who puts the site together and builds it. Then you've got people who want to be able to build pages, maybe landing pages. They might be a marketing team. And then you've got maybe just content editors, site owners that you just want to give them a little bit of control. And I think the real value here for an agency is you set up, you create the value for the customer. So whichever layouts you provide and how you set them up is creating the value and the simplicity for them rather than it just being I don't know how to put it really, but yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lot of
no, it's
opportunity there.
good. Yeah, it's good for sure. Now on that, since we're looking at those images right there,
Mhm,
when you replace that web app item number one with a
mhm.
taller image, what about a cropping feature built in to where it would force the aspect ratio to be all of the same instead of take on the aspect ratio of that taller image that you put in there? Would we
Yeah,
just have
exactly.
to write manual code ourselves to force that? Or is there a feature that you guys would be able to add to it? Yeah.
Yeah, effectively you're responsible in a good way for the layout code. So you've got total control of whether you do that kind of stuff. We'll soon have the new, sorry, let me just mute 1 second. We'll soon have the Cloudflare image optimization features built in on the new stacks, which would mean that you can do things like fill proportional quite easily on those
On
kind
those
of
kinds of things, yeah.
yeah, exactly. But at the moment, it's just a code thing. You would just set your layout up to is it cover? I think is the CSS thing that you
Yeah,
would
there's a
use.
couple of entries. I think you have to do cover and then you have to do position, I think, or something like that. But
Yeah,
anyway, yeah.
exactly. But
Um,
you click into your layout and you would just decide for the image, which is down here somewhere. Um, where's the image? Here it is.
yeah,
You
just
just
specify what you want,
put a
yeah.
class in here or something. Yeah, exactly.
If you add,
And this is all running off of the new Oracle platform?
No, this is actually on the normal stacks, so it's not stack specific, but obviously we will have it running on both. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I think the two will go hand in hand nicely because we'll start to build out features for the new infrastructure. And one big thing with the new stack is we're really looking at optimization and performance because we've now got more access and control over that. So we can see what's performant and what's not. And actually, web app output is a good example of something that isn't as performant as it could be. And if we help give you a structured way of building, we can massively help you stick to best practice and performant tools, as well as things like caching. We can bring a caching tool into the UI so that you can control the caching yourself.
Yeah, yeah, no, sounds good. I would think technical SEO, would be a huge benefit in that area too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. There's just so much that we can add to this as we go, which is why we wanted to get it out to you guys and then start getting feedback on what you need next. I just quickly on that, I think the big question, probably the only, there's two questions of whether you would use this tool over just normal pages, I think. One is it flexible enough? Are you going to be stuck with only being able to build basic pages? I think we've already proved it's not that, but we've designed it in a way where, as always with Siteglide, we try and make it incredibly flexible. So we don't really see any ways in which it's limited. In fact, the other way around, animations, for example, is quite hard to deal with a visual editor. But because we're not you're not editing visually, we don't have to worry about any of that. You can have the craziest design you like, and as long as the code is set up correctly, it'll just work. So I think it's more flexible in that sense. And the other reason you might not use it is the time involved with setting up the layouts. And if you were to start
the initial setup time, right?
Yeah, whether that's setting up a template, theme, or whether it's actually trying to convert one of your existing customer sites. Like, do you go through that work of copying across all the sections and putting the code in and everything? And obviously, we don't want you to do that. So we don't want to make it prohibitive. So we've been looking at ways in which we can help speed that up. So in the layout builder, if we just go to there's two ways you can get there, by the way. Let me just quickly show you around. So we were looking at pages. You've also got templates where you can kind of manage the actual template itself. So things like header scripts, your nav bar, footer scripts, settings, those kind of things. But the bit I really want to show you is under themes. So let's go into the Bootstrap theme, for example, and we go into this FAQ item. Now, this is where you build your section, and the work involved is obviously taking a static bit of HTML. So let's just quickly go and do that in Old Studio. We go to Site Builder and look at FAQs. This code here, I literally copied that code as it is, which is just a Flowbyte section for FAQs, and I dropped it into this UI here. And obviously I would have to manually then start creating my fields, creating my list items, list fields, and then putting all the tags in and mapping it all up. But what we've done is we've looked at whether AI can help us with this, because the great thing about this is it's structured content. There's already a schema, there's already a rule book on what to do and how to do it. So I'm just going to play you a very quick video. Do shout if you can't see it very well, but of this process. I'll speed it on a little bit, and I will share this video afterwards as well. So that's an example of the layout before I did the tags, before it had been made to work. And then this is a tool called Cursor. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but it's an IDE that works with VS Code, and it can do AI-based like agent requests. So all I did is I wrote prompt which said, based on how the sections work in the Flowbyte folder, so like the team layout, take my FAQ1 layout and make it the same. Add the metadata, add the liquid tags, and make it work in the UI effectively. And I clicked, I'm just explaining that here. And then I clicked generate. Apologies if it's a little blurry, but hopefully you can see it. I'm just getting, so I click generate, and now it's starting to say what it's going to do, and then it follows the process, and you'll see that it's replaced, it's added the metadata for starters, got rid of the empty bits and put in the correct metadata, and it's also replaced things like H2 with the title liquid tag, the p tags, and it's even done the for loops as well, and we haven't given it anything to do that. So as we write the schema and as we get more and more examples, it'll get even cleverer at being able to do these kind of things. So yeah, I didn't write any code at all, and you'll see now that we can actually go and look at that field live. But let's jump back across. You'll see that it's created the list fields, it's created and it's put all the for loops and everything. I didn't write any of that liquid code. So in theory,
what is the name of that tool?
it's called It's called Cursor. They're one of the fastest growing companies in the world at the moment, I believe. It just uses VS Code. So if you're already using that, and if you're using our CLI, then you would find this extremely easy to get started with.
So it's an add-on from the marketplace within VS Code, or you have to
I don't think
download it
so. I
separately,
think you
or
just download it separately. Yeah.
oh, okay.
So it's very, very powerful.
Interesting.
What we plan to do, so at the moment, that's what I had to do to achieve this, but we're going to build it into this UI. So soon there'll be a prompt box where you can say basically what I just did. You dump some raw HTML in here and say, set me up with a list or make it like my other template or whatever.
Yeah.
And we'll probably then take it even further, and we'll probably try and say, well, can we let you import a whole theme forest page or template at once, and it's set up your templates and it's set up your sections? Maybe we'll go that far if that's what people want. I guess at some point you'll try and work out where the value is for you guys. Your value is probably customizing Siteglide to suit your customer rather than doing repetitive work that the AI can do effectively. So we'll try and take away the painful work and leave you to do the most valuable stuff.
Luke,
Yeah.
just off the top of my head, for those of us who do use theme forest themes, like one thing that is pretty tedious is like file paths, right? Because they come in and then like we got to replace them with asset URL, that thing. Like that would speed things up immensely.
To be honest, I tried to do a fancy template for Town Hall, and that was when I gave up. It's just painful having to come into all
Each
of like
individual
the
thing, yeah, and convert it.
Every image, every JS file, everything, and it seems like AI could figure that out. But
I
like
think so.
if you said like all my JS files are in this directory, I don't even care if they get the path wrong. We could probably like find and replace that. But it's like yeah.
Do you use Studio, Devin?
I don't use the old versions, but I've been playing with this version.
I mean, sorry, Visual Studio Code, not Studio, yeah. Do you use Visual Studio Code?
Not currently, but I would start to if this was the thing.
Yeah. So what I do for that is you can select all references of a path and you can edit it once simultaneously in multiple places on the page.
Yeah.
So it does help to change those paths a little bit faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree, being able to just
you still
write
have
a prompt to do it.
like,
Yeah.
You still have to wrap it in the liquid tags and add the like asset URL at the end, and like so it's kind of
Right. Yeah.
kind of tedious. The setup, that would be a huge time saver. Anyway, Luke, you sound like you understand it.
I think for now, like that's where something like Cursor would be really useful for you guys. So I'm sharing, this is I've just opened Cursor up, and this is where you can see I asked it to do the FAQ one. But yeah, if you had a page, I did try and start doing it, and I moved on. But if you had something and you said, look, I think you could probably quickly work out whether it can do those kind of changes for you, or as DJ says, whether it's a find and replace kind of process. But definitely have a play around with, if you get CLI, like CLI is so easy to set up now. Like all you do is you open Cursor, you would open Terminal, which is built in. You then just go and get your let me show you quickly. All you do is you go to your site. Zoom is always in the way. Grab this command, drop it into Cursor. It'll ask you for your password, and then you do CLI pull to get all the files, start working, and then turn sync on, CLI sync, and then start working. And you'll make a change, and it will just automatically push that file
Every
to the
time you
server.
hit save. Yeah, every time you hit save, unless it's automatic in this one, but yeah,
Okay,
it's good.
so
I think you would like it, Devin.
Yeah, thanks for encouraging me on that. So just to be clear, so Luke, you're saying cursor is like you could use cursor as a standalone application similar to how you use VS Code for CLI connection. You could use cursor for CLI connection too.
I think Josh will answer better, but I think it takes over my VS Code and uses it, I believe. Is that right, Josh?
Yeah, so it copies over some of your configuration from your regular VS Code, so it's a similar experience. In terms of interfacing with Siteglide CLI, all it cares about is that it has a terminal. You don't actually have to use the terminal within VS Code or Cursor. It just has to be in the same directory, essentially, and it will listen for updates. But most people use the integrated terminal as it's convenient. It's where your code is, and you can see it.
Yeah. Okay.
This was a game changer for me having terminal in here, because when I was using Mac terminal, I just found the whole process, I don't know why, I just found it so much harder. And this is so simple. You just add, pull, sync, and then just work. And it's really easy.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, with this new studio, one reason we built the Josh has done an awesome job building this new section editor. It's definitely easier building and managing in here because it saves you learning the metadata. But if you're just using Cursor to write it for you, then you'll be absolutely fine. But if you want to avoid having to try and play around with the metadata, this will do all of that for you. I think there's some things to use CLI for, and then some things to use the UI for. But we'll do our best to get. Sorry.
Sorry, Luke. I know the feedback we were talking about components being their own sort of global. Is that still the idea?
Yeah. So just to explain that to everybody,
Sorry.
Devin Grades gave us some really good feedback already, where if you're in a section, so let's say I'm in here and I've made a really cool component or just a really simple component, and I want to then use that same component in my call to action box, or let's say one that doesn't have a button. Currently, I'd have to go there and create that component again. But the whole idea really should be that you create components in the same way that you create sections. There should be a section library and a component library, and then you could insert a component, a pre-existing component to any of your layouts. Is that pretty much it, Devin?
Yeah. Just the idea, like you could think of a component as like I don't know, like a code snippet or a content section in using current vernacular. Like let's just say it's a sign up bar for a mailing list or something. And then the idea is that that component is then deployable across multiple sections, multiple pages, like very easy.
Yeah. So when you add a new component here, you're actually creating one in a library rather than having to create it here. Yeah, just for
And
this
then
one.
if you want to go change that component in the library, change it from blue to red, like it just changes it everywhere.
Yeah, exactly that. A couple of other things that I've found on top of that would be things like, at the moment, if we look at this pricing one, I've discussed this with Josh, and I really wanted to have a button at the bottom, which was a component. But if I created the component here, it's going to update across all of my items because they're in a list. So what we really want to be able to do is also drop components into a list as a field type. Does that make sense? So then you would be able to put your content in for each button. Starts to get a bit crazy. Same with these features here. Like I've had to specifically create 5 feature fields, which really should just be, I think Joshua said, would be an array where you just say features is an array and you create as many features as you want, exactly like you would with items. So we've got a fourth item here. You'd be able to create a 4th feature.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. Any other questions or feedback while I think of anything else I need to show you?
Good job, Josh.
No, thank you guys.
Yeah, it's amazing work and time frame that you've been working on this. Like, really, really impressive.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work, to be fair. There's more than it looks, surprisingly, but yeah.
You can really see the potential in this, though.
Yes, yeah.
Great to hear. Yeah.
There's
Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
still quite a few things to go, as Luke outlined, like forms and more complex web apps and stuff like that. But in terms of something that you could essentially give to customers today to build out landing pages and stuff like that, it's most of all you need, really. It's more of those more niche edge cases that we're trying to cover as well, so that there shouldn't be any reason why you can't use it. And I mean, through custom sections, you can do anything at this point.
Oh,
It's just
yeah, I haven't shown that. So yeah, we've got this feature here called custom HTML, where you can drop any kind of code in there. But probably what Josh also meant was the type I showed you where, apologies for motorbike outside, the type where you can essentially just drop in a liquid include. Is that what you meant, Josh? Sorry, the more like the liquid include.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, so you can
Let me get back to one of those.
product list. Yeah, there you go. Exactly that. And you can write any custom HTML, GraphQL, liquid in here that you want. There really is no limit to it.
You could do a title tag in front of this if you wanted to, and then you would just say, right, I just want a new field of title, and copy that and drop it into there and click publish. If we go back to wherever that form was, we've already got one in the layout, but you're going to now see something appear.
You'll
We have
probably to the page itself.
Yeah, so we go back to the page quickly and just drop it in at the bottom just to quickly do it. I haven't I haven't done any styling on that at all, but you'll see it's there. Wasn't the best example. This is where like we're going to need feedback from you guys on, especially while you're trying to integrate existing Siteglide functionality. Do you end up rebuilding? Like, do you just stick with a normal form layout like this and not do anything in the new layout, just drop in the include, or do you start to merge the two things? So we'll need to play around with it more. We're going to start putting sites through this process, and any feedback will be extremely useful to make sure what we don't really want to do is feel like anybody's forced down a certain route when actually there's a really obvious solution. I think Devon's example of components is a great point there. Like, if it feels wrong, let us know and we'll refactor it or add it in. So yeah, I could show you all how to install it and get started now if you like, unless there's anything else you wanted to run through on the tool itself.
Luke, can I just ask one question structurally? Like, so
Mhm.
if you were going to build like a article layout or something, you'd probably still build that as a web app because it makes more sense. Like, it contains the data that an article would have, right? Like, and it's a database. You keep adding posts over time. So you'd use this to build the layout, and then just dynamically connect it to a web app or to the blog module or whatever, right? Like, that's how you would approach that. Seems like pretty straightforward.
I think that's a good point on what I've just said, actually. So like if we go back to our Flowbyte one, we've got this blog list. So that was literally, that's a liquid include for a site builder layout that's been built outside of this tool. What you could now do is go and grab a layout that you like from wherever, create a new section, and then just set up the fields so that you can use the new mapping feature. So the mapping that we've got here. So
Yeah.
in theory, you don't need to go and build a list view anymore. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, I guess that is what I meant. Like it's a list view builder
Yeah.
With the benefit of the import export of web apps that we like so much, right? And still manage. Like if someone's
Yeah.
writing a blog post, they'd go do that in the web app, but the front end display of it is here essentially like a list or detail view builder.
Yeah, so that is an output of 9 blog posts. They are from this module, the blog module, whether it's a web app or a module. And if you come in here and you change the data, then it'll update. So you carry on working with web apps in the normal way. Let's do the frying pan because that's more obvious. Sorry, list image. You work with your web apps and your data in the normal way. You're just going to find that if we refresh the real page, that the layout is just easier to work with here. I'll
Yeah.
go back in again.
The great thing about it as well is that you're no longer having to jump about in different places. Like you edit your web app where the web app item is, and then you go into Studio into the page where you're outputting it to edit that layout. You don't then go into code editor, find the layout, figure out which one it is, jump into page to double check it's the right one, and then worry about if it's updated on all of these pages rather than just the one. It's all
Right.
to where you're editing it.
Yeah, much more contextual. Yeah, that's
One thing I also didn't mention is that these thumbnails automatically generate. They're literally just grabbing a preview, so they're loading the section itself. So there's no crazy screenshotting or anything like that to do. It's even got my little poorly added title in there. Just a really nice feature when if you're building out layouts sections for customers, there's very little work that you actually have to do, especially once we've got the AI side of it. So I think that the big next question for me, at least, and kind of to your point, Devon, is, well, how are people going to use this? I mean, we need to see really. So if you're going and grabbing a theme forest template, yeah, at the moment there's a little bit of work with the file paths, and we'll look at ways to improve that. But you've essentially got there's no point we had this discussion earlier, no point us building a library of 100 templates when there's thousands out there. If we can make it easy for you to import any template, whether it's your own, whether it's theme forest, wherever it might be, then that's far better. We should focus on solving the import problem, I think. But then maybe you're working with an existing client website. Maybe you're winning a new project that's on WordPress or something, and you want to import the design and then use Studio to build out the functionality. So we'll try and figure out all of those use cases. But really, I think it all basically comes down to making this layout builder, this section builder, as powerful as possible, because the more functionality we put into Studio, the more that the schema is really structured, the more we can get it to be automated, means that you'll do less and less manual work, really. You'll find that you're spending your time doing functionality, workflows, design, anything else really, not faffing around with the setup, I guess, or the importing. Please do anybody jump in with any questions. But in the meantime, I'll show you how to get started. Sorry, did anybody have any questions before we do that?
Yeah, Luke, I'm curious with where this is going, at least with things like products in e-commerce, whether the mechanism here allows for you to simplify a client's ability to update, simple things like in products, pricing, or a picture, or what have you, without them having to take on the admin. In other words, would they just be able to do it right here, recategorize something, or, change a price, and give them the simplistic ability to only change certain things? Whereas if you look at, products in the admin, there's lots and lots of things to get lost in. And it's terribly complicated from a client point of view. That would be huge to be able to just have a very simple shop, if you will, that they can just change the things that you see here. Is that the intent?
It is, and we're trying to figure out how far to go with that, because essentially we could build the whole of Siteglide, every single feature, into this one UI if we wanted to. The question is, should we? I guess, like,
Where do you stop?
if I minimize the left-hand side and then I press this maximize button, we're basically full screen just in the new Studio product now, and we could easily have a button on. This is the blog one, isn't it? We could easily have it so that you could edit that item in a modal or something like that. The question is, should we, or should we have a button that takes you away to it and opens in a new tab? Like, those are the kind of things that we'll want to figure out with you guys. But the other point to make, I would say as well, maybe the argument against doing that is, I don't know if you're aware, but we now have like the admin custom menu on the left-hand side, where you can hide as much as you want of the left-hand side and you can edit what's there. So you could simply have, maybe, let's say for a certain type of user, you could have just the top one says studio or editor, and then the next one down says products. And you could just give them those two places, and all they would have to do is jump into products to manage the actual data. And then obviously they'd be in studio to manage the structure and everything. So there are arguments for us not reinventing the wheel. Obviously, there's a lot going on in these UIs, and maybe the argument that you're making for simplicity is we have a simplified version of this that would let you just edit maybe price, maybe image, maybe those kind of things. But the answer is I don't know. I don't know what the right. We'll have to work with you guys and figure out what the right answer is.
Fair enough.
It's all possible.
I would chime in and just say, Bruce, the custom admin menu, maybe you're already using that with some clients, but we just started using it like this month. And it's been super impactful for simplifying their experience. Like, for example, this one organization we're working with, we built like a portal for their board of trustees, and that's like made up of 3 web apps. And when they log into Siteglide admin, which they'd never done before, all they see are those three web apps, and then they can click in like Luke just did, right? And then they have another person in their organization who just edits like the weekly sort of like news or whatever. So when they log into Siteglide, all they see is weekly news. They don't see anything else in the left column. So that's been pretty impactful. I also feel the same way you do about like the UIs has a lot of fields and there's tabs, and it's like which tab it comes first and which comes second. There might be an argument. There might be a middle ground where we could, because the value of the structure, as I understand it, of those fields and those tabs is that that's a database you can import and export from, right? Like there's a lot of things tied to that are strengths of Siteglide that I wouldn't want to lose. But if I could decide which tab is selected, by default, or I could reorder those tabs or something like that in the admin, that would also give us a little more flexibility without kind of rebuilding the whole thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the admin stuff is great in terms of limiting what they see within the admin. I'm sort of taking it a level deeper into things like products where, there just are so many things. Somebody's just got a simple shop. you know, and maybe they don't need attributes or they don't need, you know, all of these, and you don't want them to see SEO and
Right,
all
right, right.
these different things, you know, to be able to limit it in such a way. And I was just curious if, you know, Studio could somehow fit that bill where they can change certain things, but they're not subjected to, you know, the I'm using the term complexity, but it, you know, it is what it is. It needs to have all those features, but the complexity of what's there for products now.
So what I would just add to that before Luke shows you some stuff on user roles is the ability for you to add custom UIs into Siteglide. And that will allow you to still use the same Siteglide functionality like e-commerce, but create a view for the customer that is specific to them and has limited scope in it for just the functionality that they need. So it's more of a guided experience for them. And if you're comfortable creating dashboards in Siteglide, then it should be relatively straightforward to create a slimmed down version of that process, essentially.
I haven't done that, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah,
Essentially, that's what. Go on, Josh.
No, I was just going to say there's a couple examples of some modules that we can show you that'd be interesting to show you what is possible essentially within it.
I think a good example is Helen's analytics dashboard, essentially embedding Google Looker, I think it is, to pull in like metrics and analytics. So it's such an obvious use case, and there's plenty that you could do with custom UI. I think we do want to try and offer some kind of SDK for that, or some kind of like taking the web app or the module list view, for example. Sometimes you just want to customize this a little bit in terms of what fields are shown or what, taking away some buttons. We could provide, hopefully we'll start to provide a custom UI template for this. Then you can just more easily create your own. Whereas at the moment, to do that, it's a little bit of work. I know, Devon, we've had that discussion over the years, I think, of is it worth doing a custom UI? Well, it kind of would be if we made that easier for you to do.
Yeah.
So I guess the other thing to say is I do think modals or draws could work quite nicely for item editing when we sort of come to that, like this draw here for we've got all of the functionality of the section editor without having to go back and go into sections. We're doing it all from here, and we could probably have a button that lets you edit the items and pulls in some of that information. Then the key point to make is that on user roles, so if I just jump back to here, with user roles, you can lock down a good chunk of things to try and hide them a bit. Apologies, I'm not sure. I think the version I'm on is not showing them, but you'd be able to control. Let me just show you if I can control what people can do and see. And there's quite a lot of granular control here already, but we could definitely add more to this as well. So yeah, under e-commerce, for example, you could take away a lot from the user in terms of what they see. So I think that all these questions lead to the same point, really, which is we just need to work together. We need feedback, and we need to try and make sure we take Studio in the right direction. We know it's the powerful tool. We're pretty sure we've got the infrastructure and everything right. We just need to hopefully make the right decisions going forwards. Bruce, do you think does that give you a good feeling? Do you think of understanding where we can go with it, or is there anything else, do you think, worth discussing?
It's an excellent start.
Very good.
Great, good to hear. Okay, well, I will show you how you get started with it. So probably gonna lost the page. So if you just log in, so sorry, I'll start from the beginning. It's on this new domain, studioalpha.siteglide.support. I'll be doing an interactive guide basically after this meeting, and releasing how to get started with this and make it nice and easy. But essentially you go to this URL. If it doesn't let you log in, that's because you're not set up as an alpha tester with us. Just let us know, send us a live chat, and we'll make sure you've got alpha access to do that. I'll do it for everybody on the call anyway, make sure you've got access. But for anybody watching the recording, let us know. You go to this URL, again, I'll send a link, you log in, and then you need to make sure that you either have the new module installed, the Studio module, or what we recommend is that you start from our template. So what I've just been demoing with Flowbyte and Bootstrap is a template that we've created. You would just select templates and in Marketplace, and when you come down here, you'll see Studio Alpha template, and you just create a new site from this template, and it'll give you exactly what I've just shown you. So then you don't have to worry about setting up your theme, setting up your template, setting up your pages, that kind of stuff. You'll have it, and your sections, you'll have it out of the box. So yeah, I'd recommend getting started with this. We'll send out the guide, and then we'll also have a place in our new roadmap for logging bugs and logging feature requests specifically for Studio, to not clog up the rest. And we'll have somewhere in Discord to chat about ideas and improvements and bugs.
This template doesn't determine Flowbyte or Bootstrap. It's just a template for the structure of Studio.
So that's a great question. So that template will give you exactly what I've shown you. So it'll have Flowbyte installed and the template and the pages that I've shown you. If you want to start from scratch, you're very welcome to. And to do that instead, you have a blank site or an existing site, and you just need to select modules from the category, or scroll down or search, and look for Studio itself. So Studio Alpha Release is the module. If you install there we go. If you install that on a site, then as you say, you'll just get the UI, and you would then have a blank area here for themes, templates, and pages, and you'd have to set them up yourself.
Perfect.
I think that's definitely what everybody will want to do. I would just recommend starting from the template, the site template, if you get stuck, or if you want to have a demo to play around with.
That's great.
Great. Yeah, I'll share more on that ASAP, just trying to get everything ready in time. I'm really conscious of everybody's time. Appreciate all your time on the call. There are a couple more things just to mention quickly that we've got let me just pull up the roadmap. So if anybody's not aware, if you're on the dashboard, we've got the feedback button. That would take you to feedback and roadmap and releases. We're starting to put our releases and announcements in here. If you haven't seen them, definitely worth having a look. But under roadmap, Studio 2025 alpha release is today, so we'll get that marked as done, then with some follow-up tasks. The Site API and Zapier V2 integration, that's basically ready, and we're expecting to release that next week. It's a long time coming. It's a massive infrastructure improvement. Somebody said earlier they were worried that means everything's going to break. It's most definitely a new way of doing the API, and everything existing will stay in place and remain as it is. So benefits quickly of that are that it's not dependent on our API. It's going to be a site level API. So it'll run off each site. You'll have an API per website. And the benefits are it won't slow our API down, but at the same time, if our API is struggling, you won't be affected on your sites. And the other massive benefits are that we'll be able to add more endpoints easily. One of the endpoints we'll be adding very soon is pages, which will basically enhance Studio even more, because you could use the API to bring in something from external third parties, or you could even use Siteglide as a headless CMS if you wanted to, and push content and data out to another another website or server if needed. And the final one is you can create your own endpoints. So it's a site API that is also fully extendable for you to write your own endpoints. Sorry, lots of information. Hopefully it makes sense. But that one is just around the corner. We'll have full comms and docs on that. You won't have to do anything, but obviously we'd really like it for people to give us feedback and ideally try and start using it relatively soon so that we can start to see people switch over and iron out any issues if there are any. Just quickly on Zapier. Zapier, the way it works currently isn't great because it uses something called polling. So it just constantly keeps asking Siteglide, have you got any new data every 15 minutes or every however many minutes? And the new way that it's built will be push based. So any event will get pushed. And that's how you can use the like instance apps feature in Zapier. So lots of benefits. Apologies it's taken us so long, but it's a big change that we needed to get right. Any questions on that? On the API or Zapier? Okay, it's probably one of those things you need to see and read up on, and when you have time, play around with.
Does it still require a Zapier account, I guess, obviously, and this would be different from automations, is that right?
So there's two parts to this. There's the site API itself, which both Zapier and Zapier runs off. You don't. Sorry, I can't remember the exact question, but it depends what you're using. If you're using the site API, then there would be some changes that you would make if you want to use it, but you wouldn't have to do anything if you want to carry on using the old one. Sorry, DJ, what was the question again?
Does it still require a Zapier account
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So if you're using
to
the
use?
Zapier side of it, then yes,
It still
you would need
requires a
Zapier,
Zapier account.
but only if you're using Zapier. So you've still got the option of using the API and you've got the option of using automations, which bypasses Zapier.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah. No impact really on automations. I don't. Yeah, maybe. But it's mainly if you're doing custom API work or Zapier that's it's going to mainly affect.
Right. So automations is still there and still works.
Yeah, and we'll continue to. Yeah, no changes there, other than maybe improvements that you can use your new site API endpoints as part of it. But it's yeah.
And if there isn't an automation integration available, what's the process for adding that or looking at adding?
Just request it. I'll check. We should probably have an area for that. I think under Marketplace is currently where you would put integrations, but I'll probably give a designated area to that. I think the only one we've really had so far was high level. Website Success requested that. So automations, the integrations that you're talking about are using a partner service called Rollout. They will add some high level or some top level standard integrations that they think are useful to everybody. But if it's something a bit more custom or you want it quicker, then that's something we would need to do. So it would need to be on the roadmap, and potentially it would need to be like a fast tracked feature if you really needed it quicker. Or
Well,
you can do it
my
yourself.
specific need would be to register for a Zoom webinar, for
I remember,
example. So if
yeah.
I create a form, right, I create a Siteglide form on the site and I want it to, when somebody completes that form, I want it to register them for a Zoom webinar, a
Mhm.
specific Zoom webinar. Is that something that's already there or would have to be requested?
I did request that for you back in
Oh, okay.
you asked for it a little while back,
Yeah.
and I will chase them on that. Again, it's something we can do, but I think that's something that they would probably expect to do. So I'll get some clarity on whether they're going to do it. If not, it's something we can look at doing. Or obviously, if it was something less mainstream than Zoom, you might want to use the API and do it yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that and I'll get back to you on that one.
Thanks.
Really, it is worth if you do create a roadmap item for any integrations. I think I'll do a separate area for integrations, and if you do put them in, then we can better manage those and follow them up.
Sure.
And then, yeah, just lastly to mention a few other things that are coming next. Cloudflare native image optimization is a really cool one. We're onto that pretty soon as part of rolling out new stack. It's a really good incentive to get customers to move, I think, because you can switch people over to benefiting from that feature within Siteglide. Will help you have some tools to move sites over. To be honest, though, it shouldn't. Migrations or moving to new stack won't really affect any customers, other than you've got to do the DNS change right at the end. But the site copy should do all of the work for you, and it's just a case of maybe giving some reasons to do it. So security or new features are two good ones. And then, yeah, little things or very important things like custom fields on categories, custom fields on company information, and then like categories enable, disable are some that we want to bring in, as well as a couple of e-commerce features as well, like product attribute combinations. If any questions on those or anything glaringly obvious missing, do you think? Okay, lastly, I forgot to mention one thing that we have done already and completed was custom fields on pages. It's a really interesting feature, a really powerful feature, but it adds a little confusion to Studio because it's a similar kind of concept, and it allows you to add structured data to pages, normal old pages. So it's really useful where you're not going to convert a site anytime soon to the new Studio that we've just been looking at, and you just want some extra flexibility to control some data within a page. Josh, I believe you have a very quick demo of a use case recently for that.
Yeah, I'll quickly pull that up.
I'll stop sharing.
So one of our clients has a new site called Anzip. And as part of that, it's essentially a networking group for Kiwis and Aussies, and specifically Kiwis who are insurance and property as well. And as part of that, the front end pages of them are exactly the same for each vertical. So this is Kiwis and this is Aussies. So they're similar in many ways in terms of structure, but they have differences in theming, colors, and stuff like that. The main thing, however, is content. Obviously, you don't want duplicate content across these pages. So we've got different content on each pages, but we also didn't want to have to go, oh, we have to update it separately in the code for each one of these pages. So we've given the client a structured data area. So they've got 3 versions of each pages. And if we head into the Kiwis one, we can look in the custom fields, and these match exactly what's available on the front end here. So you've got gallery, some intro text here, and then some cards down at the bottom. And these match exactly the same. And these 2 pages, so this is the Aussies one, they have exactly the same field names. So that what that actually allows us to do is in the page itself is actually include an include for the page instead. So the about page has all the custom field stuff at the top, but it just includes this about. And that means we can just edit this about page using the custom fields for both of them, which match. And then whenever we make a structural content to any of these pages, it's updated across all of them in the one single file. So a bit of a 2-for-1 in terms of use case there, but this has been really useful for the client because they don't know HTML at all, and they want an easy way to update both of them. But
It's like web apps for pages is the way I think of it.
Essentially, yeah. So a lot of clients before this would create a one-to-one replica of web apps to their pages, and managing that can be quite annoying to do as well. and you're jumping out of context again. And this is one of those improvements things. Like, we want to keep you in context as much as possible.
Brilliant. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, that's
Has anybody else tried
cool.
custom fields yet? No.
Sorry, DJ, I jumped over you. Go ahead if you like.
No, I was just saying that's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that feature's been out, I think, only a few weeks. So it was good timing for a few people. I think Web Success had a use case for it with a data source, I believe. So yeah, do have a play around with it. It's definitely useful. I guess it, as I say, it really suits those existing sites where you want to take some of the really powerful new concept of structured data within pages, but maybe can't justify moving across to the new studio, or it's not appropriate. Good. I've done quite a bit of talking. Does anybody else have anything that they wanted to bring up or talk about? I do appreciate everybody's time, so very happy to leave it there if not.
I'll have to get the recording because the email said 10 a.m.
Oh, sorry, Michael. I believe I used time and date to double check that all the dates
Yeah.
and times are right,
And I
but
should
I'm
have
not
just
sure what
clicked
happened.
I should have just clicked in to double check it because when I clicked in to check the time, it said 9. And we always have it at 9. So, I thought, oh, we're starting at 10. That's new.
Apologies. Well, we've got the
No
recording. I'll
problem.
get that out as soon as I can, and also have a play around with Studio because most of the meeting has been about
Was about
Studio. So
okay,
I do have a
cool.
play around with it. You'll have full access to it as of now.
Nice. Okay.
Great. Anybody else? One thing I
Good
mentioned in
job,
the first meeting.
guys.
Sorry, just quickly, one thing I mentioned in the first meeting is the name, whether it should be called Studio. Obviously, we've had a couple of iterations, so everything's on the table really in terms of let's make Siteglide go in the right direction generally, and try and make everything a lot more integrated and seamless because that's the bit that we haven't quite got right, I think. So feel free to think outside the box and let us know any ideas. But yeah, thank you very much for your time. Really good to see everybody, and speak soon. Any issues at all getting started with Studio, let us know, and we'll be there on live chat or Discord.
Groovy.
Great. Thanks
Thanks
again,
again, everyone.
guys.
Yep.
Speak soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Luke.
Bye.